Greetings. Tonight, we are parting the misty curtains and stepping into an ancient world that whispers humanity's deepest stories, ancient Greek mythology. Before we begin, a lot of effort is put into publishing videos every day on this channel. You can support me by subscribing, sharing your thoughts with me in the comments, and via the join button. The more I see your reviews, the more motivated I become. I'm so glad you exist. Perhaps your mind is conjuring images of lightning-wielding gods, roaring monsters, or epic wars. But in truth, these myths contain so much more. They whisper of the serene rhythm of the stars, the eternity of nature, the inner journey of man, and the quiet revelation of his fate. Tonight, we embark on a calm and peaceful exploration from the heights of Olympus to the depths of the earth, towards the most ancient secrets of the human soul. Now, for your comfort, settle into a comfortable place. Gently close your eyes. Let all the frantic noise of the outer world fall silent. Take a deep breath inward. Let your soul settle into its most serene corner. For tonight, it is time for a calming journey of the mind to listen to the divine whispers carried by the wind, to this ancient land filled with antique wisdom. Let the melody of the myths cradle you. Let its story guide your steps calmly towards the deep fragments of the system. If you are ready, we are diving into the land of legends. Continuing with ancient Greek mythology, in the dream world of the ancient Greeks, there was a beginning before time and form existed, a beginning where everything melted into an absolute formlessness. This beginning was classified as chaos. However, this chaos was not a disruption or decay as we understand it. Rather, it was a formless, boundless, vast potentiality. It was a timeless, endless silence where potential lay in a deep sleep. The birth pangs of the universe occurred not with a great explosion, but with a sleeping whisper rising from the deep slumbers of chaos. It was a tranquility where no sound echoed, no light danced, only the reign of absolute particles prevailed. From within this formlessness, the first beings gently began to emerge. With a primal datum, the first great being, the mother of all things, the majestic and fertile Earth Mother Gaia, emerged from the depths of chaos. Her emergence was not a sudden noise, but a stability shaped in the infinite cells of chaos. Gaia was the first fixed point of the universe. She was the great, calm ground upon which mountains would rise and seas would spread. Her existence was a symbol of the first order, the first fundamental sense, against the limitless uncertainty of chaos. With her existence, everything began. It was like serene breaths. Immediately after Gaia, Tartarus, the deep, silent abyss of life, emerged. Tartarus was the dark, bottomless chasm lying beneath Gaia. He was the deepest, ultimate tranquil point of the universe. He would become the final resting place for punished souls or chained titans. Tartarus's existence represented the eternal silence and unknowability underlying the cosmic order. And then, that mysterious and gentle force that would guide all existence appeared, Eros, the spirit of primitive desire and transcendent love. Eros was not a coercive force. He was a subtle, invisible attraction that caused beings to approach, unite, and create. He is the first whisper sprouting within the tranquility of chaos. A silent, sweet driving force for movement and the beginning of formation. With his emergence, the universe had taken its first step towards union and shape, like the first gentle note of an orchestra. Along with these first great beings, the mighty spirits of night and darkness also emerged into the environment, Erebus, darkness, and Nyx, night. They reflected the deepest characteristics of chaos. They enveloped the first moments of the universe in an absolute darkness and tranquility. Their existence represented the depth of cosmic sleep, the invisibility, and the peace of the unknown. This was the silence of that ancient night, where everything was still undefined, mere silhouettes. From the union of Erebus and Nyx, The next stage was born, Ether, Light, and Hemera, Day. Their birth was not an exploding light, but a gentle, serene enlightenment sprouting from within the needs of chaos and Erebus. The first light's existence brought a lifetime of illumination to the universe. It was a process where darkness was pushed back, and form and color were gently revealed. This was the transition from the depth of night to the gentle beginning of a calm day. Gaia did not remain alone. She spontaneously brought forth the vast sky dome, Uranus. Uranus was the silent, expansive realm, studded with stars, that surrounded and embraced Gaia. His existence symbolized the symmetrical order, the ancient serenity of the celestial order. Then Gaia gave birth to the Aurea, the mountains, and Pontus, the sea. The mountains were the Earth's first elevations, silent and majestic guardians. The sea was a vast and calm power, containing the first whispers of the cosmic rhythm with its endless waves. These beings formed the first universe of Greek mythology. They were the parts of the first cosmic order that awakened from the slumbers of chaos, took shape, and each contained a serenity and an ancient power in their essence. This formation was not a great battle or a conflict of unity, but rather the spreading of fundamental breaths, the individual sprouting of a developing order, a cosmos. Their existence was like the dream of a world immersed in a divine system, harboring the whispers of all stories. Now gently close your eyes. Imagine the deep silence of that ancient chaos, Gaia's gentle awakening, Eros's invisible pull, and how the first illuminated gods shaped the universe. May this rhythmic story embrace you deeply. Remember, even the greatest beginnings in history sometimes occur with the quietest whispers. When the first breath of the cosmos rose from the sleeping whisper of chaos, a new generation stepped onto the stage of the universe. These were the offspring of the Earth Mother Gaia and the Sky Father Uranus who embraced her. They were the embodied forms of their primitive powers and ancient elements. They were the first great rulers of the world, before the chatter of the Olympian gods was heard. Their existence marked an era where the cosmic order became more distinct, but was still reflected in a deep rumble. Among these great titans was Cronus, who represented time, solitary, ruthless, and inevitable. He was a figure known for his cunning and determination. His existence was the rhythmic flow of hours, days, and seasons, the slow, relentless progression of life's shining markers. By his side was Rhea, who embraced the fertile cycles of nature and the ancient power of motherhood, flowing like a joyful river. Her existence ensured the sprouting of all life, the working of nature's own silent machinery. Oceanus, who contained the vast serenity and abyssal depth of the seas, and his wife Tethys ruled the gentle registry of all oceans, rivers, and springs. The existence of their beings represented the constant, meditative choices of the waters. They exuded an eternal peace and tranquility. Then came Mnemosyne, memory, the silent depository of all the past and all memories. Her existence harbored the whispers of forgotten times, the reflections of lost stories. It was as if there was an eternal variable of the past. Themis, representing the coldness of divine law and justice, the standard principles, was among them. She brought balance and order to the universe. Hyperion, the father of the sun, moon, and dawn, was the ancient ruler of celestial light and observation. With his existence, he gave the universe a cycle and consciousness. However, this ancient reign was shadowed by an internal tension. Uranus, fearing his own limited power, repeatedly imprisoned his children back into Gaia's womb or the depths of Tartarus. This was an indescribable pain for Gaia. The Earth Mother was deeply wounded by this silent, restrained agony. A great sorrow accumulated in the fragments. Ultimately, within this deep grief, she germinated the cold seeds of revenge. Gaia whispered a plan to her bravest son, Cronus, to end Uranus's ruthless reign. This was not the beginning of a great war, but the story of an ancient shift of power with a silent blow. Cronus, following his mother Gaia's instructions, stood against Uranus silently and resolutely. The fall of Uranus occurred not with a great noise, but with a tranquil shift of power, like an ancient shadow. Cronus, seizing the power of his own siblings, became the new ruler of the Titans' shadow reign. His reign is often referred to as the Golden Age in Greek mythology. It was a time of peace, prosperity, and abundance, a harmonious era where humans lived without changes or hardships. Nature gave its gifts generously. Life continued like the calmness of a river. Everything found peace in the serene arms of a primitive environment. However, a prophecy cast a shadow over Cronus's tranquil reign, that he too would be overthrown by one of his own sons. This fear, this whisper of fate, poisoned Cronus's heart. To prevent this, he began to swallow each child Rhea bore him, one by one. This act of swallowing symbolized his all-consuming nature, that he would one day be lost in the past he had devoured. But Rhea's silent resistance carried the seed of a new order, a new era. The ancient power of the Titans was gradually receding into its own shadow. The quiet whispers of Olympus were the news of a new period. Cronus's fear of being consumed by time prepared the end of his own reign. Thanks to his mother Rhea's silent resistance and cunning, his youngest son, Zeus, was saved as part of a plan woven with the visible threads of fate. On the green slopes of the island of Crete, in the depths of caves, amidst the whispers of the humid regions and the melody of the mountain winds, Zeus grew up. His childhood was a period of silent waiting and secret preparation, outside the world ruled by the Titans. His growth was like a storm brewing, silent, immense, and with power hidden within. Zeus, having gathered his strength, returned to challenge his father, Cronus. This challenge was not merely a conflict between father and son, but also a cosmic battle between the end of an old order and the beginning of a new one. The War of the Titans, the Titanomachy. This war lasted for 10 years. It was not a lived and experienced conflict, but a massive struggle rhythmically advancing against the sum of elements and ancient powers. It was as if the universe itself was taking a long, deep breath to find its new destiny. In the early years of the war, the primitive power of the Titans clashed with the newly sprouting might of the Olympians. While lightning tore the sky and the earth trembled, this was not a great chaos, but the ruthless steps of a cosmic dance. After freeing his loyal brothers Poseidon and Hades, Zeus acquired powerful allies like the Centimanes, hundred-handed ones, and the Cyclopes, one-eyed giants. The Cyclopes forged the thunder and lightning for Zeus, the trident for Poseidon, and the helm of invisibility for Hades. These artifacts were the silent symbols of the Olympians' new era of sovereignty. Some Titans, like Prometheus, with their wisdom, sided with the Olympians, becoming part of this great change. Towards the end of the war, Zeus's thunder and lightning helped the sky like a clarinet's sound. This was not only the sound of destruction but also the divine proclamation of a new order, a new era. The flashes of lightning illuminated the formations, dispersing the old shadows of the Titans. Each lightning bolt was a rhythmic stroke of a cosmic hammer breaking the Titans' power. Finally, the Titans were defeated. Most were imprisoned in the deep, silent chasms of Tartarus. They were plunged into an eternal slumber. The multiplication of individuals brought peace to the universe, but it was also a lament for an ancient power being buried in silence. After the defeat of the Titans, the cosmic domains of the Olympian gods were calmly shared among themselves. Zeus became the supreme ruler of the sky. Poseidon took the vast depths of the ocean and the tranquility of the seas. Hades withdrew to the silent and mysterious parts of the underworld. These divisions occurred not with a great noise, but with the resolution of a divine order, a cosmic harmony. The new gods chose the lofty Mount Olympus as their home. This high and serene mountain above the clouds became the heart of the new order. Olympus was a place where eternal spring reigned, where winds whispered, and where the gods led traditional yet tranquil lives. Here, the gods were sustained with nectar and ambrosia, living in great harmony among themselves, overseeing the entire universe. The rise of Olympus was like the universe taking a deep breath. A transition from chaos to order, from the shadow of primitive powers to a more refined governance. With this new order established after the thunder, a calmer, more predictable rhythm was provided for the universe, offering new hope for humanity. Time would now flow not with Cronus's terrible devouring, but under the wisdom and serene watch of the Olympian gods. When the great echoes of the Titanomachy finally fell silent in the cosmos, the dawn of a new age had broken. Now the control of the universe was in the hands of Zeus, who emerged from the throne with the mighty voice of thunder and his loyal Olympian companions. On the cloud-veiled peak of Mount Olympus, this lofty place where eternal spring reigned, became the eternal home of the 12 great gods. Here, they were sustained with nectar and ambrosia, living in great harmony among themselves and overseeing the encompassers of the universe. The first of these 12 supreme gods was Zeus, master of lightning and the sky, king of gods and men. His sovereignty symbolized the protection of justice and order with a cosmic balance. The distant thunder in the sky was not only the herald of a storm but also a serene reflection of Zeus's far-reaching justice, maintaining the cosmic order. His heartbeat was visible in everyone's universe, great but rhythmic. By his side sat Hera, queen of the protectors, guardian of the sanctity of marriage and family. Her silent watch ensured the tranquility of home harmony and family bonds. Even the occasional disputes between them were but small ripples forming on the water, not disturbing the supreme serenity of Olympus, only to find tranquility again. Poseidon, who ruled the motor depth of the seas and the rhythmic power of the waves, was also the lord of the silent forces beneath the earth. The vast serenity of the ocean, the powerful currents in the depths, and that meditative sound of waves crashing on the shore were the most evident manifestations of Poseidon's power. Even earthquakes were sudden, short intervals of awakening in his world, only to be shrouded in silence again. Demeter, the generous life of the harvest, agriculture, and the seasons, lived in every sprout of the earth, in every silent growth narrative of the crops. Her presence was intertwined with the calm rustling of the fields, the power of cultivation, and the slow, unceasing rhythm of nature. The grief she sang for her daughter Persephone was a deep and universal sorrow, cloaked in the seasonal silence of nature. Hestia, guardian of the hearth, home, and family, was the quietest and most tranquil target on Olympus. Her warmth never extinguished. She was the symbol of sacredness and enduring peace. She represented the order of the home and its privacy, the calm strength of family bonds, the preservation of its invisibility. Hestia's presence was the whisper of a home's vitality, a serenity beyond time. Hades, the deep and mysterious ruler of the underworld, though often counted among the 12 Olympians, ruled in the eternal silence of his own realm, away from the liberating festivities of Olympus. His domain was filled with a deep peace and an inevitable tranquility that constituted the serene journeys of souls. There was neither absolute darkness nor eternal noise. Only the most fundamental silence of existence. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, strategic war, and the future of events, represented the serene weight of the olive tree's shadow and the peace of delicate craftsmanship. Apollo, the god of music, poetry, light, and prophecy, was the voice of harmonious melodies played on the lyre, the gentle warmth of the extended sun, and the mysterious serenity of prophecies. Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, the wild, and the future of the day, roamed the silent depths of the forests, reigning as a protector in the tranquility of moonlight and the calm of the wilderness. Aphrodite, the secret of love, beauty, and pleasure, emanated a gentle charm. She represented the silent blooming of flowers in nature and the calm sprouting of love in the heart. Hephaestus, the god of blacksmiths and fire, worked in his own massive forge under Olympus with the controlled rhythm of fire shaping the iron path. Hermes, the messenger of the gods, god of trade and travel, moved swiftly through the skies and roads, ensuring the colorful transmission of news and the acceleration of communication. The lives of the Olympians passed with great feasts, divine assemblies, and observing mortals. But all of this was part of a supreme rhythm, a great serenity, and an order beyond time. The distribution of their existence was a silent power. Each provided balance and harmony in their own domain. They were the silent owners of the cosmos. With their mere existence, they added a tranquility to the universe. Amidst the celestial thrones on Olympus' lofty course, the grace and power of feminine energy shaped the world in a way that followed. The goddesses, though not as vocal as the lightning-wielding or battlefield-roaring gods, possessed a power as deep as the cycles of nature, like a subtle whisper. They represented the ancient serenity of beauty, wisdom, life, and the home. Aphrodite, the secret of love, beauty, and pleasure, was far more than just physical allure. Her presence allowed the sprouting of affection and desire in the heart, like the unfolding of a flower bud. Aphrodite's power enveloped the world in a soft beauty, like the first light of a spring morning, awakening a quiet joy in hearts. One could encounter her whisper in the gentle undulation of the sea, the delicate scent of roses, and that first timid interest shared by two souls. She was the quietly organizing pulse of the world's deepest beauty. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, strategic war, and stories, lived not on battlefields but in the quiet corners of the mind. Her wisdom emerged not with a sudden explosion, but with careful thought and delicate programming. Athena was present in the rhythmic, soft clicking of a loom, in the gentle shaping of marble by a sculptor, and in the silent creation within a thinker's memory. She represented the serene weight of knowledge and the peace of rationality. She was a living example of how strength could be blended with intelligence. Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, the wild, the moon, and the future of birth, roamed the untouched depths of the forests under the silvered death of moonbeams. Her nature was in harmony with its own rhythm, almost inaudible. Artemis was the free guardian of wildlife. She protected the tranquility of pristine nature. She was a beginning of how the mysterious powers in her moon-like, serene, and distant dominion were protected with a calm determination. One could feel her presence in the whisper of the forest wind and the silent flight of a deer. Demeter, the distribution of the harvest, agriculture, fertility, and the Earth Mother, lived in every sprout, in every silent growth solution of the crops. Rising from the depth of her power was a gentle, unceasing rhythm that nourished all. Demeter was the voice of the golden fields rustling in the wind, the changing data of the parent, and the step-by-step sprouting of life. The deep grief she felt for her daughter Persephone was a universal sorrow, cloaked in the seasonal narrative of nature, uniting the mournful silence of autumn and the tranquil sleep of winter. Her presence was the silent power of sustaining and continuing all life. Hestia, the sacred guardian of the hearth, home, and family, was the quietest, most serene, and most enduring stance on Olympus. Her warmth was an ever-burning, gleaming spark where the home expanded. She was the symbol of sacredness, warmth, and enduring peace. Hestia's presence was the whisper of a home's freedom, of silent conversations, of the invisibility of family bonds, a serenity beyond the world and the world. She represented the most fundamental, ultimate things of the entire universe, the home. Hera, the queen of the goddesses, the sacred guardian of marriage and family, was the loftiest woman on Olympus. Although her stories are sometimes recalled with jealousy or anger, her fundamental power lay in the silent endurance of marriage vows and family bonds. Her existence represented the preservation of the most fundamental human bond, the serene steadfastness of unity. Her supreme isolation and silent care were the protection of comfort and order under the roof of families. These romantics shaped the world and the human soul in a subtle, elegant, and profound way with their different characteristics. The power of individuals lay not in noise, but in whispers, tranquility, and the harmony in the cycles of formation. Each added their own calm color to the splendor of Olympus, playing their own serene notes in the eternal cosmic melody of the universe. Alongside the serene and wisdom-filled whispers of the leaders on Olympus' lofty journey, there were other great gods who wove the fabric of the universe with a different energy. The power of the products was sometimes creative, like the gentle formation of a work of art, and sometimes silent and destructive like a storm. But in both cases, they were parts of this energy that maintained the cosmic balance and the rhythm of duration. Apollo, the god of music, light, prophecy, and healing, was perhaps the most harmonious of Olympus. His presence was a soothing peace that poured like gentle melodies from a lyre's strings. The orderly illumination of the sun's first lights, the serene embrace of dawn, was a continuation of Apollo's light. His prophecies were not warnings, but serene echoes whispering the deep wisdom of times and fate. His healing touch soothed pain in bodies and restlessness in souls like a lullaby. Apollo was a vocal hymn of universal harmony and balance. His notes echoed in the heavens. Ares, the god of war, though often associated with rage and destruction, had a rhythm even in his power. Instead of the insane chaos of battlefields, we can think of the disciplined, rhythmic march of an army or the deep, breathless silence before a battle. Although his power sometimes seemed like an uncontrolled explosion of anger, it was actually linked to the cold calculations of strategy and the inevitable energy of conflict. Ares's existence was a muffled reflection from afar of the struggle and change that was an inevitable part of existence. In the end, everything would find tranquility again. Hephaestus, the god of blacksmiths, fire, and creations, worked in his own massive forge under Olympus with a constant rhythm of creation. Although they seemed like pounding sounds, in Hephaestus's hands, this was the serene melody of metal being shaped, the controlled emissions of fire, and the patient forging of a flawless work. His art held a peace hidden in a stroke, a determination seen in a piece. Hephaestus's workshop was a temple created by meticulousness and silent intent. Hermes, the messenger of the gods, god of trade and travel, moved through the skies and visibility like a visible whisper. His winged sandals danced with the wind, their speed moving swiftly and directly. He ensured the gentle meshing of communication networks. Hermes's presence was the calm and constant rhythm of diversity, the exchange of differences, and the connection between two worlds. He was the elegance of movement and the serene speed of communication. Dionysus, the god of wine, fertility, festivity, and theater, though remembered for a chaotic enthusiasm, held a deep peace within his energy. The sprouting of grapevines from the soil, the serene aging of fruits, and the cycles in each other's fits, his worship, beyond drunkenness, contained hypnotic and serene rites passed in harmony with natural, primitive rhythms. Dionysus's existence whispered the mysteries of being, the silent power of natural cycles, and the voice of depth in the depths of consciousness. Hades, the ruler of the underworld, ruled in the eternal silence of his own files, far from the fertile tables of Olympus. His domain was filled with a deep peace and an inevitable tranquility that constituted the serene journeys of souls. There was neither absolute darkness nor eternal noise. Only the most fundamental silence of existence. He was part of the cosmic balance of life and death. Within this tranquility, souls continued in a calm flow towards their own destinies. These gods, with their different but related energies, played their own unique notes in the main orchestra. The gentle touch of creation, the distant reflection of war, and the silent power of the elements all together sustained the cosmic rhythm and balance. Their existence was a possession of Olympus' supreme serenity and the perfect order of the universe itself. After the mighty energies of the Olympian gods, unique beings who built a bridge between the mortal world and the divine realm stepped onto the stage of Greek mythology, the heroes. They were not just strong warriors or brave hearts embarking on epic adventures. These demigods, carrying the blood of both gods and mortals, were born with a unique burden, often with painful prophecies and the silent but inevitable call of fate. Although their lives seemed full of external action, they were actually a mirror of deep internal conflicts and spiritual journeys. This duality of the divine and the mortal created a constant tension in the souls of the heroes. While the lofty blood of Olympus flowed in their veins, on the other hand, they faced the limitations, fears, and weaknesses provided by mortal reach. This situation pushed them into loneliness even among their own kind, expected to be beings suspended between two worlds, silent about their existence. They were like twilight, belonging neither entirely to the exhausted nor entirely to the dark. This event echoed in their inner worlds like a constant whisper. Most heroes were sealed with the distinct lines of their fate even before they were born. Prophecies drew the difficult and often tragic characteristics in advance. This was a silent burden they carried on their shoulders. To know their own future but still try to escape it. This was a silent struggle against fate. A questioning reflected in the depths of the mind. The step taken towards it was a step taken towards that unknown end that the prophecy whispered to them. It was like walking in a labyrinth without knowing where the exit was, guided only by the thread of fate. The lives of the heroes were furnished with endless challenges and tasks. These challenges were not just physical battles or struggles with monsters. They were also long, arduous journeys. These journeys required great patience, determination, and often silent suffering. Thirst in the desert, cold winds in the mountains, long voyages on unknown waters. Each was a step that scraped away at the hero's soul and resolve, pushing them even deeper. Like the hardening of a tree in the wind, each difficulty made them stronger. Alongside these external trials, heroes also grappled with their own internal conflicts. Excessive pride, hubris, was reported to be one of the most common and insidious internal enemies. A subtle flaw born from their quiet self-confidence, leading them to underestimate the gods or fate. Sometimes, unintentional actions, like Hercules' moments of madness, brought forth guilt and remorse that echoed deeply in their souls. This inner pain could be quieter and more destructive than any external foe. The loneliness brought by their demigod status also added to their burdens. These beings, either fully divine nor fully mortal, lived between two worlds, souls belonging nowhere completely. This loneliness triggered their silent quest to understand their identity and purpose. A hero was a traveler in his own internal labyrinth, in pursuit of his own self and existence. In Greek mythology, heroism was not always about achieving victory. It was more about endurance, character, and the lessons learned from suffering. A hero's greatest triumph was perhaps not defeating a great enemy, but confronting the darkness within himself and continuing on his path. Their quiet moments were when they made their decisions, faced their destinies, and discovered their inner strength. These inner journeys became as epic and soul-soothing as the great external adventures. Now, gently close your eyes. Imagine the internal conflicts in the souls of those ancient heroes, the silent weight of fate upon them, and their tranquil walks on unknown paths. May this rhythmic story pierce through you systematically. Even the greatest heroisms in history sometimes begin with the quietest internal struggle. After the mighty energies of the Olympian gods and the arduous paths of the heroes, we come to one of the most well-known and enduring figures of ancient Greek mythology, Hercules, or by his Greek name, Heracles. Born from the union of the god Zeus and a mortal woman, Hercules possessed immense strength from infancy. However, this colossal power also came with the heavy burden of his fate and the endless hatred of Hera, the queen of Olympus. Hercules' story is not just a whisper of physical might, but also of a deep weariness in his soul, of remorse, and a quest for never-ending atonement. The hatred Hera bore him deeply affected Hercules' soul. One day, cursed by Hera, he lost his mind. This was not an attack from an external enemy, but a sinister and silent assault rising from the deepest corners of his own mind. In this moment of madness, he experienced a terrible outcome. Hercules brutally slaughtered his own wife and children. When his sanity returned, the weight of these actions crushed him. That deep, indescribable rupture, the guilt and mental anguish that followed long after the event broke, became Hercules' eternal burden. He was lost in the shadow of his own strength, forced to cope with a silent agony. To atone for and cleanse himself of this unspeakable remorse, he was ordered by Apollo's oracle at Delphi to enter the service of Eurystheus, the king of Tiryns. Eurystheus was under Hera's influence, and gave Hercules 12 labors so difficult they were thought to be impossible for any hero to complete. But these labors were not merely physical obstacles. They were also a journey of spiritual purification. Hercules undertook the details of these labors as an act of transformation, penance, and inner resistance. Each one was a test of patience, determination, and silent suffering, long-lasting and regular. When strangling the Nemean lion, he used not only his brute strength but also his silent, relentless determination. The lion's skin he obtained became not so much a trophy of victory, but a burden he carried. Fighting the Lernaean Hydra, where 2 new heads grew for each one cut off, symbolized the silent despair of an endless endeavor. Hercules had to complete this infinite battle with patience, one by one, almost like a ritual. The task of cleaning the Augean stables was a mundane and disgusting duty, unbefitting of heroic epics. Yet, Hercules, by diverting the flow of mighty rivers, completed even this filthy and thankless task with silent intelligence and practical resolve. This was a triumph of mental cleverness rather than mere muscle power. When capturing the Cretan bull or the Stymphalian birds, he subdued wild nature not with brute force but with silent tracking and an ability to understand its natural rhythm. His long, solitary journeys to fetch the mares of Diomedes or the golden apples of the Hesperides were tests of perseverance to endure the vastness of geographies and times. On these journeys, Hercules battled not only external enemies but also his own loneliness and weariness. And finally, he descended into the deep silence of Hades to fetch Cerberus, the 3-headed guardian of the underworld. Confronting the guardian of death and silence was less a physical struggle and more a spiritual confrontation. The tranquility of the underworld formed the final stage of his labors. These 12 labors exhausted Hercules. But more importantly, they left deep scars on his soul. The completion of his tasks brought not a feeling of victory, but a quiet weariness to his very soul. It transformed him from an unblemished hero into a soul filled with burdens and pain. Even though he had paid his penance, Hercules' life continued to be filled with hardships. This was an acceptance encompassing an endless chain of challenges. From the depths of Hercules' weary soul, we now reach out to the story of another great hero of ancient Greece, Theseus. The pride of Athens, this prince was known not only for his physical strength but also for his sharp intellect and unshakable resolve. His story is the serene narrative of a victory lived under the guidance of a slender thread, from the echoing silent steps in a dark labyrinth to its very end amidst despair. Athens was forced to pay a terrible tribute to King Minos of Crete every year. 7 young men and 7 young women were sent to Crete, where they were abandoned in the depths of the labyrinth inhabited by the legendary Minotaur. For Athens, this was a heartbreaking, silent departure repeated annually. A sorrowful ritual where young lives were surrendered to the unknown. Theseus decided to resist this cruel fate. He volunteered to be one of the tributes to end this shame upon his city. His motivation was not merely personal glory or the loss of his expenditure. It was rather a deep, serene sense of duty to alleviate the suffering of his people and put an end to this horrible practice. The voyage to Crete was filled with the gentle creaks of the ship and the soft lapping of waves against the hull. Amidst the quiet calm of the youths sitting on the ship, Theseus's determination shone like the steady light of a lighthouse. Each mile was a calm step taken towards the unknown. Upon arriving at Knossos, the capital of Crete, King Minos's palace welcomed them. This palace was not just the ruler's residence, it was itself a mystery. With its labyrinthine corridors, bewildering turns, and silent, shadowy courtyards, it resembled a puzzle carved from stone. It was here that King Minos's daughter, Princess Ariadne, observed Theseus. Impressed by his courage and custody, a strange compassion sprouted in Ariadne's indications. Despite the risk of betraying her father, she chose to help Theseus. Her report was not a rebellion, but a whisper of compassion. Ariadne gave Theseus a magical dagger and, most importantly, a ball of thread. This was not just a simple string, it was a symbol of hope, logic, and guidance in the dark labyrinth. When Theseus stepped into the labyrinth, this thread was tied to the entrance. The labyrinth itself was not merely a physical complexity, but also a mental challenge. Its winding corridors, misleading turns, and dark passages where light barely seeped dragged one towards despair. Theseus's steps were measured, rhythmic, and resolute. The only sounds heard were his own breath and the soft sound of the thread on the ground. The heavy, muffled sounds of the Minotaur from afar added to this silent tension. Yet, Theseus's steps advanced with the same calmness. The moment of encounter with the Minotaur was not a long struggle, but a swift, decisive, and almost silent action that took place in the center. Theseus's intelligence and Ariadne's dagger subdued the primitive power of the beast. The deep silence that emerged after the struggle heralded a victory. Then, Theseus, following the thread, guided the other Athenian youths through the labyrinth's complex corridors to safety. The relief of rescue came not with a great cry of joy, but with an inner peace and a feeling of silent exhalation. However, this victory left a bitter taste for Theseus. His subsequent abandonment of Ariadne on the island of Naxos, according to some stories unintentionally, left a quiet sadness in his soul. Although he was welcomed in Athens with divine celebrations, the weight of heroism and the personal shadow of his losses were upon him. Theseus's calm steps in the labyrinth had not only defeated a monster but had also shown that even in the darkest places of the human soul, one can find the thread of reason, intelligence, and salvation. After Theseus's clever steps in the labyrinth, we now turn to another hero who faced one of fate's most impossible trials, Perseus. On the arduous paths of ancient heroes, Perseus' story whispers how, despite an inauspicious beginning, divine aid and quiet determination carried him towards a great destiny. This prince, left in a chest at sea due to a prophecy, survived through the gentle rocking of the waves and the deep whispers of the sea, a quiet period of waiting for his fate. While growing up on the island of Seriphos, Perseus fell victim to a sinister plan of the island's king, Polydectes. To get rid of Perseus, the king threatened him with an impossible task: to bring back the head of the Gorgon Medusa. Medusa was a terrifying monster with snake-like features whose gaze turned living beings to stone. While this seemed like a crude order from the outside, it was actually a cunningly woven plan aimed at trapping Perseus. As he set out on this difficult task, a transformation occurred in Perseus's journey, from the shadow of desperation to the serene light of divine guidance. Gods like Athena and Hermes, impressed by his silent resolve, came to his aid. Athena gave him a shield as bright as a mirror. Hermes granted a sharply pointed sword, winged sandals, and Hades' helm of invisibility, or in some versions, a bag. These gifts were not so much an intervention, but a divine whisper illuminating the hero's path, offering him comprehensive guidance. On his way to Medusa, Perseus encountered the Gree, 3 old and gray sisters. These beings, sharing a single eye and a single tooth, were silent and separated figures carrying the deep weariness of time and old age. Perseus, cunningly seizing their single eye, learned the location of Medusa's hidden lair. This was a victory of intelligence and silent trickery over brute force. The journey to the Gorgon's lair was an advance towards one of the most desolate and silent corners of the world. The petrified figures around stood as silent statues of once breathing living beings. This increased the tranquility of the energy. It was a place where life had frozen, where time had slowed. When the moment of confrontation with Medusa came, Perseus's action was filled with sudden and calculated decisiveness. Using Athena's bright shield as a mirror, he avoided Medusa's direct gaze. This was a calm, calculated interpretation of using the act of seeing as a weapon at a moment when that very gaze meant his own loss. Seeing through the reflection, he swung his sword with a precise and silent motion. The head severed from Medusa's neck was met with either a scream nor resistance. Only the rule of silence and petrified life continued. From Medusa's blood sprang the winged horse Pegasus and the giant warrior Chrysaor, a rare and serene demonstration of life born from death, of greatness bursting forth from life. After completing his task, Perseus took Medusa's head and took flight to escape the other immortal Gorgon sisters. The soft whisper of the winged sandals in the wind and the haste of the escape reflected the silent tension of the moment. The power of Medusa's head continued uninterrupted. Perseus turned the giant Atlas to stone, helping to lighten the course of the sky, and finally, by turning King Polydectes, who was tormenting his mother Danae, to stone, he achieved a silent justice. His petrified figure stood as an idol to the silent power of Medusa's gaze. Perseus's story is an ancient whisper of overcoming daunting challenges, prioritizing intelligence over strength, and subduing even the greatest fears with quiet resolve. After Perseus's intelligent victory over Medusa, we now extend to a broader group of heroic examples. The great sea voyage undertaken by a group of brave souls aboard a ship bound by fate and friendship, the quest for the Golden Fleece. Jason's claim to the throne of Iolcus was sealed by an impossible task imposed on him by his uncle, King Peleus, to bring back the sacred Golden Fleece from the distant land of Colchis. This was no ordinary task. It was a challenge silently written, whispered by fate itself. For this epic journey, a unique ship was built, the Argo. Crafted with Athena's wisdom by the master shipbuilder Argos, the Argo was not just a ship. It possessed a keel made from a speaking oak timber taken from the sacred forest of Dodona. As it glided on the motor of the ocean, the gentle creak of the Argo's strong yet graceful hull, the soft sounds of the wind filling its sails, and the rhythmic melody of waves hitting the boat acted as a lullaby to its passengers. It was a silent and sturdy travel companion, alive itself. Jason did not embark on this great quest alone. He gathered heroes from all over Greece, each unique in their own field. Hercules' weary but unshakable strength, Orpheus' soul-calming music from his lyre, Castor and Pollux' tranquil sleep, the huntress Atlanta's silent sharpness, and Lynceus's eyes that could see deep. The deck of the Argo became a scene of silent brotherhood where diverse personalities came together yet served a common purpose. Each would sink into their own inner being in the depth of the sea, in the hand of the stars. But they were united by a silent bond that fate had woven for them. The Argo's voyage was long, filled with durations and times. But it also contained its own rhythm and peace. A brief, peaceful stop on the island of Lemnos provided a tranquil beginning. But there were also dangers. The encounter with the starving harpies, who mercilessly whispered prophecies, and the suffering of the blind seer Phineus increased the journey's silent tension. However, the driving away of the harpies by the sons of Boreas expressed a peaceful silence that followed. Then came one of the greatest obstacles, the Symplegades, or the clashing rocks. These were massive rocks constantly colliding at the narrow entrance of a strait. The Argos gliding through this dangerous passage required breathtaking warmth and silent courage. The ship's gentle glide, the echoing sound of the rocks clashing behind them, and the deep relief that followed were a silent victory of intelligence and determination against nature's ruthless power. The enchanting songs of the sirens were subdued by the calm melody Orpheus played against them. Thus, the crew could advance under the guidance of harmony. The motor of the seas, the silent waiting under the stars at night, the rhythmic sound of the waves. It was a continuation of the patience and determination brought by these long journeys. Each new island, each new horizon, was a sign of the task's silent progression beyond mere calm curiosity. Finally, they reached the land of Colchis. The hostile demeanor of King Aetes made Jason's task even more difficult. But here, the visibility of fate took over once again. The king's daughter, the mysterious Princess Medea. Upon first seeing Jason, Medea fell in love with him. Her help came not as a declaration of war, but with the whispers of magic and possibility. The potions and spells prepared by Medea helped Jason tame the fire-breathing bulls and subdue the warriors that sprang from the dragon's teeth. It was a silent victory where the hero's courage and magic united calmly. They finally reached the grove where the golden fleece was hidden. The dragon guarding the fleece was plunged into a deep sleep by Medea's gentle lullaby or potion. The golden fleece itself was a presence of uninterrupted light in the dark grove. Jason's taking of the fleece was the tranquil climax of the mission. It was the completion of the content of a legend spanning centuries. After seizing the golden fleece, the return journey from Colchis passed as a calm but determined escape, despite King Aetes' pursuit. The rhythmic sound of the waves, the sails filled with wind, the long periods spent under the stars, each was a lasting, peaceful exhaustion of an accomplished task and the hope of returning home. The slow voyage of the Argonauts was not just an adventure, but also an ancient whisper of the power of friendship, the virtue of patience, and how the threads of fate are unraveled. After the Argonauts' silent voyage on the vast seas, we now extend to one of the most tragic journeys in Greek mythology, which pushes us to question the limits of the human mind and the invisible threads of fate, the story of King Oedipus. Oedipus's birth was sealed for King Laius and Queen Jocasta of Thebes with a whisper of deep fear. Their son would kill his father and marry his mother. From the moment this prophecy was born, it emerged like a heavy burden of silence. His family, trying to escape this terrible fate, attempted to get rid of him by piercing the baby's ankles and abandoning him on a mountain. But fate's plans were far deeper than mortal efforts. The infant Oedipus was found by a shepherd and raised as their own by King Polybus and Queen Merope of Corinth. He grew up as a happy prince, unaware of his true origins. When a whisper of curiosity awoke in his heart, wondering if he was truly Corinthian, he set out from a state of silent questioning towards the sacred oracle at Delphi for answers. The oracle whispered to him anew the prophecy that he would kill his father and marry his mother. This was the serene and clear voice of a chilling, inevitable truth. Fleeing this ruthless whisper of fate, he decided never to return to Corinth. While advancing on a calm, dusty road, he encountered an old man and his attendants at a crossing point. A quarrel over right-of-way turned into a short, sharp, and silent conflict. Oedipus, unknowingly, killed his own father, Laius. It was an irreversible action, another invisible knot of fate's thread severed. There were no witnesses, no sounds. Only the dusty road and the whisper of the wind. Continuing his journey, Oedipus encountered the Sphinx terrorizing the city of Thebes. This creature, with a lion's body, eagle's wings, and a woman's head, terrorized the people of Thebes with a riddle, devouring those who could not solve it. Its weight was filled with a mysterious silence. The only sound was the Sphinx's awaited breath. Oedipus listened to the riddle fearlessly but with a deep calm. He gathered his mind, stripped away all complexity, and found the riddle's perfect solution. The Sphinx's downfall came not with a great noise, but as it threw itself into the abyss towards its own end in silent despair. It brought a deep and peaceful relief to Thebes. Welcomed as a savior by the Theban people, Oedipus was rewarded and, unknowingly, married his own mother, Jocaste. A peaceful and just reign lasted for years. The threads of fate were deceptively knotted. The prophecy had been fulfilled in its entirety. The city found peace under the new king's wisdom. Yet, this peace carried the shadow of a terrible secret lying beneath. But one day, a silent and merciless plague gripped Thebes. The land bore no fruit, animals died, people perished. It was a divine punishment for an unknown crime. A heavy, silent ribbon hanging in the air. Oedipus decided to find the source of this plague to end his people's suffering. Like a blind man seeking his own destiny, he set out after the truth. Realization and emergence in some way. The mysterious and silent warnings of the seer Tiresias, a messenger from Corinth, and then the whispers of an old shepherd. Each piece fell into place like part of a horrifying puzzle. Each new piece of information settled into his mind with the sound of a chilling click. Oedipus realized the terrible destiny of the events he had unknowingly woven with his own hands. This moment of revelation was like the breaking of dawn, but a dawn whose new light illuminated the contours of a much greater exit. When the truth emerged in all its nakedness, Queen Jocaste's silent despair drove her to suicide. Oedipus, in turn, blinded himself with his own hands. This was not just physical blindness, but a silent and painful act symbolizing his own blindness, his refusal to see the truth. He turned not towards the complexity of external appearances in the dark, but towards a deep, serene isolation within his own inner world. He abdicated his throne and set out into silent, blind exile, guided by his daughter Antigone. This is the final journey of the process. A silent walk, accompanied by the dust of the roads and the whisper of the winds, seeking ultimate peace with his fate. Oedipus's story is a whisper of that ancient and sorrowful dance between the sharpest point of the human mind and the most inevitable threads of fate. His blindness reminds us that sometimes, to see the truth, one needs not eyes, but a silent acceptance from the depths of one's soul. After King Oedipus's painful dance with fate, we now dive into a story that leads us to the legendary city of Troy, rising on the borders of East and West, and its silent fall. With its high, impassable walls and journeying towers, Troy stood tall for ages, once filled with whispers of peace and wealth. The wind spreading through the olive trees constituted the city's pulse. It promised the continuity of a calm life. However, this peace was disrupted by the subtle touch of fate, with Paris's abduction of Helen, the wife of Menelaus. This was not a declaration of war, but a subtle, fate-laden act that would ignite the conflict. This decision of Paris, blinded by Helen's beauty, initiated the first whisper leading to the destruction of a civilization. To reclaim Helen and punish Troy, the Achaeans, under the command of Agamemnon, gathered from all over Greece. The warrior spirit of Achilles, the cunning intelligence of Odysseus, the unshakable strength of Ajax. A massive fleet of 1,000 ships plowed through the waters of the Aegean Sea towards the shores of Troy. But it was not just the rescue of a woman. It was a silent demonstration of a determined will for revenge, tightening the threads of fate. The siege of Troy lasted 10 years. It was not a process of constant noise and destruction, but a long, exhausting, and often stagnant conflict. Siege life had its own rhythm. Silent patrols by day, calm watches under the stars at night, the muffled sounds from the distant enemy camp. The weariness brought by the war left deep marks on both sides. It was not only deaths but also the silent despair created by this endless conflict that gnawed at souls. Achilles' wrath and his withdrawal from the battle began as a personal challenge. But it negatively affected the course of the war. His ultimate and serene return rewove the webs of fate. And then came the greatest silence of the 10-year siege, the Trojan horse. This massive, hollow construction, designed by Odysseus's cunning intelligence, was a marvel of comprehensively sustained deception. When completed, the Greeks boarded their ships and disappeared over the horizon. They left the horse behind, presented as a mysterious gift. The Trojans wavered between daily joy and suspicion about taking it inside. It was an act of arrogant but serene pride that would bring their end. When night fell, the city was plunged into a deep slumber. The warriors hidden inside the horse slipped out. They opened the gates. It was too late. The city's defenses were breached. The fall of Troy was not a long, drawn-out battle, but a swift, silent, and merciless end. The screams accelerating through the night quickly turned to silence. The rising smoke rose like monuments in the silent sky of dawn, leaving behind only desolate, ruined rubble. The pulse of a bygone era was now filled with the deep echoes of silence and the touch of fate. But it was not just the story of a city's collapse. It was also a story of human passions and the inevitable consequences of loss. The visible hand of fate had directed this event, this whisper, to gently lower the curtain on this great journey. The fall of Troy remained a silent but profound lesson etched in the minds of the ancient world. After the epic whispers of Troy, we now dive into a more poignant story that leads us to the skies above the island of Crete, to the silent echoes of a personal liberation and boundless ambition, the fall of Icarus. This story is not just the fall of a youth, but also whispers the price of one of the deepest desires of the human soul, the silent passion and yearning for freedom. The master craftsman and inventive genius Daedalus, whom we know from our previous stories, had been imprisoned by King Minos of Crete. He had fallen into deep despair between the walls of his dungeon. But even while trapped within his own mind, he sought an escape route, and finally, Daedalus devised a way out from the endless confines of the sky. He decided to build wings made of bird feathers and wax for himself and his son, Icarus. The construction of the wings was a meticulous, silent labor. The careful placement of each feather, the constant monitoring of the wax, the shaping of the protective frames. It was a silent hum of creation, a whisper of an alternative freedom. When the wings were completed, Daedalus gave his warnings to his young son Icarus with a father's concern and loving silence. "Do not fly too low, nor too high, lest the sea's dampness weigh down your wings, or the sun's heat melt the wax." This was a breath filled with the experience of a wise master, a serene advice of balance and moderation. But young Icarus's heart was filled with a silent ambition sprouting from not listening to his parents' fragments, and an unlimited curiosity for the sky he possessed. During the flight, With the gentle whisper of the wind passing through the wings and the tiny warmth of the world left below, Icarus experienced an indescribable joy and a silent ecstasy. The melody of freedom, the soft comfort of cleaving the air. Disregarding his father's warnings, he rose higher and higher. He was drawn to the irresistible attraction of the sun, that silent pull of the ancient light. His ambition pulled him skyward. With each breath, he ascended further. The wax began to soften under the relentless, gentle warmth. This was not a sudden and dramatic event, but an almost hissless, progressing process. A feather on the wings first separated with a gentle rustle, then others began to detach one by one. This was the silent autumn of Icarus's fall. The melting of each feather was a whisper heralding the inevitability of his fate. When the fall began, Icarus's scream was not heard. Perhaps it was lost in the roar of the wind as he cleaved the air one last time with that serene noise, simply gliding downwards. The vastness of the silent expanse from the heights to the blue waters of the immense sea further emphasized the magnitude of the continuation. And then, when he hit the water that would not let go, the slight, almost non-existent splash sound was Icarus's silent final stop, found in the deep, tranquil arms of the sea. Daedalus watched the fall of his sons collapse from above, helplessly. The pain in his heart was a deep and silent sorrow, not apparent from the outside. As he continued his journey, still carried by his wings, towards Sicily, the reflections of Icarus's silent fall remained in his soul forever. Icarus's story is a whisper about the boundlessness of human ambition and the ancient wisdom of the lessons of balance and moderation. After the stillness of Icarus's shining wings in the sun, we now dive into the whispers of a myth that leads to the bottomless depths of the world's underworld, to one of fate's strangest and deepest punishments, the endless toil of Sisyphus, king of Corinth. Sisyphus was a figure known as the most cunning of mortals, one who even tricked and chained the death god Thanatos, who did not shy away from challenging the gods. His daring intelligence would ultimately bring him an eternal punishment. By the divine decree of Zeus, Sisyphus was condemned to an endless task in the underworld, to push a giant boulder to the top of a hill. But just as the rock reached the summit, due to its own lived-in nature, it would roll back down on its own. Sisyphus was obliged to repeat it every time. This was an endless cycle. A sort of timeless, silent program. Yet, within the monotony of this punishment, a strangely meditative rhythm was hidden. Every day, the same slope, the same rock, the same effort. That silent tension felt in every muscle of Sisyphus, the rhythmic sound of his continuing footsteps, the muffled grunts emerging as he pushed the rock. But it was not just a physical effort. It was also a resistance from the depths of the soul. The regular rhythm of his breath, as he pushed the rock, was as if time itself was breathing with it. At that critical moment, when the rock approached the summit, the whisper of the anticipated victory gave way to the silence of an inevitable disappointment. The rock would pause at the very top for a moment, as if taking one last breath. Then it would roll back down ruthlessly. The sound of the rolling stone echoed in the noise of its descent. It was the necessity of an endless cycle. Sisyphus would watch the rock's descent downwards, then return to the task with the same determination. Although this action of his seemed filled with absolute despair, it also contained a deep-seated acceptance, or even a kind of defiance, residing in the deepest parts of the human soul. Sisyphus's internal state was reported from the deepest layers of this punishment. To know his task was futile, but to find the determination to complete it at every opportunity. This had become a philosophy in itself. Some thinkers saw in his endless effort a way to find the meaning of life, despite its meaninglessness. While Sisyphus pushed the rock, he was actually redefining the meaning of his own existence. It was a silent, personal victory. He had become a being who found his own inner peace within that eternal task. This is a profound metaphor for humanity's quest for meaning in repetitive labor and seemingly meaningless tasks. Unlike the adventures of other heroes, Sisyphus's story does not strive for a specific end. His task is eternal. This makes him uniquely and comprehensively unifying. It is an ongoing legacy extending throughout his effort. After the meditative burden of Sisyphus's endless task, we are born into the explosions of formation, at the end of existence, away from the noises of life, at the calmest point, the underworld. Here, away from the salvation of Olympus and the chaos of the world, was a vast, dim realm, its own depths and a profound silence. It was filled not with horror, but with a divine seriousness and an inevitable tranquility. The ruler of the underworld was Hades, brother of Olympian King Zeus. Although depicted as dark and passing, he was actually a merciless but just, silent, and serene god. This supreme lord of the shadows sat on his throne with a calm dignity. By governing the souls of the dead, he played a vital role in preserving the cosmic balance. His existence was a symbol of life's inevitable end. But this end came like a whisper, bringing with it an absolute peace. The road stretching into the underworld was sealed with a silent end. Souls would first arrive at one of the 5 great rivers, the Styx. Its waters flowed dark, stagnant, and with an eternal silence. Crossing this river was a symbol of a definitive farewell, where all ties of transformation were cut, and there was no return. The one who greeted the souls was the old and gruff boatman Charon. He would row his oars in that region, advancing with a rhythmic sound on the water, turning a deaf ear to the whispers of the dead and the last breaths they carried from the living world. He would ferry the departing souls to the other shore. The sound of Charon's oars hitting the water was the serene rhythm of this final journey made worldwide throughout his life. On the other side of the river, the 3-headed guardian dog Cerberus would growl. He was not a typical monster, but rather a majestic and enduring presence protecting stability. He was the silent guardian of the shadows, preventing the separation of the living from the distribution of the dead. His presence was a stability of this realm's order of stability. Within the underworld, the journeys of souls were divided into different paths according to their destinies. The first place they reached was Erebus, a deep and silent region where the rule of an eternal twilight continued. Then came the vast asphodel meadows, where the tranquility of a rustling and forgotten existence reigned, where ordinary souls wandered aimlessly. Here, souls continued to exist, carrying the memories of their past lives. Deeper still stretched Tartarus, where the titans and the greatest sinners were imprisoned for eternity. It was a bottomless abyss of absolute silence and inevitability. It was the deepest and most static point of the universe. A place where all rebellions, all efforts, were ultimately buried in silence. However, the underworld was not just a place of punishment. There were also the Elysian Fields, or Elysium, where heroes and virtuous souls found eternal peace. It was a realm where eternal spring reigned, a soft light filtered through, melodies rose like whispers, and an endless peace and tranquility spread. Here, souls rested forever in a silent peace, purified from the burdens of the past. Guided by Hades's wisdom, 3 judges, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Aeacus, would judge the souls throughout their journey with a permanent justice. The decisions of the individuals were not a court, but a silent unfolding of the cosmic order. The other rivers of the underworld were also separated for the journey of souls. The river Lethe flowed with the waters of forgetfulness, allowing souls to forget all the pains and memories of their past lives and find peace. The river Acheron was a deep, silent current of past sorrows. The river Cocytus carried the calm echoes of lamentations and despair, and the river Phlegethon was a boundary of the hellish fire covering each region of the fire. The underworld, while signifying an end, is also the deepest place of rest and transition for existence. It was a realm where its ultimate end found tranquility, where souls shed their momentary efforts and withdrew into their own personal privacy. It is like diving into a great continuity, an eternal rest where all the burdens of existence are left behind. After emerging from the tranquil depths of Hades' lived-in world, we will now focus on myths that whisper that one of the most fundamental and daily concepts of Greek mythology, death, is not just an end, but also a transition to a new beginning. These stories, reflected in nature's seasonal cycles, the plants sleeping in their stores and sprouting anew, emphasize that life is an eternal cycle. One of the most powerful and poignant examples of this is the story of Persephone, daughter of the harvest goddess Demeter. While Persephone was gathering flowers, she was abducted by Hades, the ruler of the underworld. Her disappearance from her time left a deep freedom in the world. Her grieving mother, Demeter, was so plunged into sorrow in her daughter's absence that all life on earth ceased. The trees bore no fruit. The crops did not sprout. The earth fell into a deep sleep of a person along with its mother's grief. This sign involved the death of nature, the holding of its breath. Demeter's unceasing grief necessitated Zeus's intervention. According to the compromise made, it was decided that Persephone would spend one part of the year with her loss, in the underworld, and the other part with her husband Hades on earth. Persephone's return to the surface meant the awakening of nature, the revitalization of the soil, the blooming of flowers, and the regreening of the fields. This was a silent miracle repeated yearly, the peaceful promise of spring after the winter sleep. This whispers not only that death and rebirth are a story, but also that it is a divine voice of nature's own rhythm, continuing silently and constantly. In some myths, other figures intertwined with nature also represent life and death. The death and rebirth every spring of Adonis, the beloved young hunter of the beauty scene Aphrodite, operates and reflects the inevitability of the natural cycle. The fragmentation and resurrection of the wine dossier Dionysus in different myths is a symbol of the constant renewal of natural details, spiritual environments, and life, like the harvest of the vineyards and the selection of his wines. In ancient Greek thought, especially in movements like Orpheism and Pythagoreanism, it was believed in the distribution of the soul's continuous journey between bodies, that one death opened the door to another life. This was the soul's journey of silent purification and evolution through time and space. Alternative rituals, like the Eleusinian mysteries, promised initiates a better life after death and an understanding of the deep secrets of death and rebirth. These rituals were sacred moments where divine wholeness was transmitted and spiritual peace was promised. Life always continued in a cycle. Every winter was a silent death of nature, and its spring was the resprouting of its life. Greek mythology presented these eternal marriages not as an end, but as a peaceful transition, a part of existence itself. After the eternal thought of death and rebirth, we reach out to the sacred corners of the Greek world for an ancient opening echoing in the depths of the human soul. What does the future whisper to us, and how does the will of the gods reach mortals? The answer to these questions lay in the mystery of oracles, the silent instruments that transmitted the gods' coins to people. Their divine characteristics were a sacred and serene manifestation of that deep curiosity. The most famous was the Oracle of Delphi, located in the silence of lush valleys at the foot of Mount Parnassus. Here was not just a temple, but a sacred place where the whispers of the hidden navel of the world itself rose. The atmosphere of Delphi was filled with an awe-inspiring calmness. Those seeking the oracle would carry their hopes and fears within them, solving the sacred account of the prophecy and the deep silence of the shrine. Here, the Pythia, the priestess of Apollo, would enter a deep trance. With the distribution of the fumes rising from the earth or the waters of the sacred spring, the Pythia's clarity would unite with the divine. Her prophecies were not loud, dramatic declarations, but rather comprehensive, vast, mysterious whispers from beyond. Her voice became a melody where the meaning of the words was difficult. The regular listeners would listen to these spiritual sounds with a meticulous silence, pondering how each would affect their destinies. The scent of laurel and incense filling the temple's interior reinforced the tranquil atmosphere of this sacred experience. Besides Delphi, there were other oracles. Each whispered the divine in their own unique ways. Dodona, the oracle center of Zeus, conveyed its prophecies by interpreting the rustling of sacred oak trees and the gentle sounds of doves. The whisper of the wind passing through the trees was a serene example of how a divine message was transmitted through nature itself. Some oracles tried to gain knowledge by contacting the souls of the dead. These places, called necromantia, were dark and silent places, sacred sites visited by those seeking the secrets of the past and hints of the future in the tranquility of the spirit world. The content of the prophecies was often far from giving direct answers. Their ways were filled with symbols and riddles. They were deep, framed whispers. The burden brought by knowing or declaring the future is clearly seen in the fate of heroes like Oedipus. Prophecies would push people in ways that would change the shape of their own decisions and destinies. Sometimes a whisper could cause a king to go to war, a hero to undertake a task, or an ordinary person's entire life to change. The journeys made to the oracle were often a long and silent pilgrimage. People would carry their hopes, fears, and questions within them, walking towards the sacred moments. Its divine step was an expression of a deep respect for the results, and that calm curiosity for the mysteries of fate. The priests and interpreters were silent instruments who translated the whispers of the lots or the trees, making the divine messages suitable for mortal minds. They allowed the curtain between the divine and the mortal to be drawn aside serenely. These mysterious oracles were a silent recognition of the Greeks' effort to understand the order of their universe, the touch of fate, and the will of the gods. Their whispers were a peaceful melody filled with a deep wisdom extending along their length. After the mysterious whispers of the oracles, we now blink and turn our gaze away, towards that vast, silent celestial dome that envelopes us like a calm blanket every night. For the ancient Greeks, the night sky was not just made of intermittent points of light. It was a silent, eternal canvas where the stories of gods and heroes were etched forever. The events of the myths were whispered for generations, shining serenely in the stars even after they ended. In nights calculated years ago, without light pollution, the sky's consumed expanse was dizzying. Each star, each constellation, was connected to a god's wrath, a hero's victory, or a tragic end of a love. The gods placed the figures who played important roles in mortals' lives or were part of their own divine stories in the stars, as an immortal reminder or sometimes a silent punishment. This was a kind of cosmic formation. A poem of the universe itself, whispered. You can see the giant hunter Orion in the sky. With the 3 bright stars of his belt, he progresses across the celestial sphere, his dogs, the Canis Major and Minor constellations, following him serenely. His eternal hunt is a ritual echoing within the silence of the sky. The stars of the Ursa Major and Minor constellations whisper the sorrowful story of a mother and her son, whom Zeus transformed into bears to protect them from Hera's wrath, then placed in the dark sky. They continue their wait in the ancient polar intervals of the universe, turning rhythmically around the pole star. The Perseus constellation is harbored as a silent reminder of the hero carrying the variable star Algol, representing the shapes of Medusa's head. The chain princess Andromeda's constellation is located near Perseus, murmuring her silent pain and ultimate celestial rescue. The arrogant Queen Cassiopeia and King Cepheus took their places in the sky as a silent display of eternal pride and punishment. Hercules himself has a celestial representation. His weary soul is forever fulfilled within the vast silence of the stars. The silent power of the Nemean lion is marked in the sky as the Leo constellation. The dolphin, Delphinus, constellation glides among the stars hidden in the gentle sea, connected to Poseidon or Apollo. When the ancient Greeks watched the night sky, they combined the stories in their own world with the stars. This was a moment of deep contemplation. They tried to understand the order of the universe, the touch of fate, and the place of their own existence in the cosmic big picture. This serene act of observation gave both peace and knowledge. The deep silence of the night, the grandeur of the heavens, and the eternal flawlessness of the stars calmed the soul, distracting the mind from worldly concerns. These stars continue to whisper the same stories even thousands of years later. They guide sailors, inspire the depths of dreams, and nourish humanity's eternal curiosity. Greek mythology persists not only in ancient texts but also as silent, eternal lights burning in its night sky. A melody coming through the shining durations of people, a lullaby etched into humanity's collective memory. Excellent. We are opening the final act of our journey through Greek mythology. The Greek dream. Under the enduring reflections and eternal sovereignty of mythology across the ages, I will present to you how these ancient stories reached, how they echoed in minds through the centuries, and what serenity they brought to our soul. Like an eternal lullaby gently closing this time curtain. On our wonderful journey starting from the sleeping whisper of chaos, extending to the supreme serenity of Olympus, from the shadow reign of the Titans to the creative and destructive energies of the gods, we listen to epics on the arduous paths of heroes like Hercules' weary soul, Theseus' silent steps in the labyrinth, and Perseus' dance with serpent eyes. We went on the Argonauts' serene voyage on the oceans. We felt the depth of Oedipus's dance with fate. We witnessed the silent destruction of a city with the whispers of Troy. We grasped the delicate ambition in Icarus's fall. We comprehended the meditative burden in Sisyphus's endless effort. We experienced the deep silence of Hades's life. We recalled nature's eternal form with the myths of death and rebirth. And finally, we listened to the mysterious whispers of the oracles and examined the stories of the stars etched in the night sky. All these myths were not just products of the imagination of people who lived thousands of years ago. They were the silent echoes of the most ancient questions humans asked about their universe, their fate, and themselves. These stories flowed like a river through the analyses of civilizations and cultures over the centuries. They gently seeped into our minds, our art, and our language. The Greek dream is not just a relic of an ancient past. It is a serene and continuous legacy that also shapes our present. The world of art and literature grew in the immense shadow of Greek mythology. From Renaissance sculptures to Baroque paintings, from Shakespeare's experiences to modern novels, the gods and heroes of Olympus continued to inspire creative souls. Seeing the wisdom of an Athena in the serene texture of marble, the grace of an Aphrodite in the silence of a canvas, was the trans-era reflection of this ancient beauty. The origin of theater lies in the catharsis, the spiritual purification, brought by these myths. In moments where the audience empathized with the hero's fate in their own days, philosophy and thoughts were also shaped by the deep whispers of these myths. From Plato's allegory of the cave to the endless debates on fate and free will, Greek mythology prepared the ground for humans to question ethical dilemmas and existential questions. The quest for knowledge, the characteristics of justice, the depths of the human soul. All of these were discovered in the multi-layered narratives it offered. Our very language carries the traces of these ancient whispers. From the burden on Atlas's back, to the self-admiration of narcissism, from the universal term chaos, to titanic strength. These words are uttered from mouths every day, unknowingly retelling stories thousands of years old. The depths of psychology echo in the Oedipus complex or Jung's archetypal thoughts. In the calm but powerful currents of human consciousness, the distribution of how myths act as a compass is shown. In today's popular culture, this Greek world cannot help but be borrowed from its eternal appeal. From Hollywood's blockbuster films to the complex worlds of computer games, from the epic narratives of fantasy literature, Zeus's lightnings, Medusa's gaze, and the Minotaur's labyrinth are constantly reinterpreted and passed on to new generations. This is like an ancient river continuing to flow on modern shores. Its essence remains permanent. Only the form of its distribution changes. The Greek dream is something one must dive into somehow. A journey from chaos to order, from the unknown to influences, from human effort to the divine. This was humanity's collective dream, a common subconscious narrative. It inspires us, presents us with tests, and whispers deep insights beyond facts. It is like a melody dreamed under the stars, continuing to echo even thousands of years later, defying time. Now, let these ancient whispers and the stories of the stars envelop you. All the haste and noise of the day recedes into the distance. It leaves its place, embracing you with a serene night. Like the enduring reflections of Greek myths through the ages, allow your mind to calm down. Feel a muscle of your body relax, a nerve of yours loosen. Notice your eye closing gently, your breath assuming a regular and deep rhythm. Let your old understandings and your peace carry you with a deep, continuous endurance at the end of this historical journey. Distance yourself from all the views in your mind. Leave their place to the whispers of ancient times and the eternal silence of the star-filled sky. You need not worry anymore. Nothing is chasing you. No God is questioning you. There is only peace, an eternal serenity. Remember, it's not just for learning history. Sometimes the deepest, most restful sleeps are available within everyone. Let the curtain of time gently close. Let the shadows of the past shake not you, but only your dreams. Let the wisdom and silence of the ancient world lull your soul with lullabies. Sweet dreams. And know that the Greek dream envelopes you with an eternal peace, that the silence beyond the curtain of time invites you deeply.